be at the current prices if we don't change them. This is now the column where we could play with the numbers.
Right.
And this is the revenue with the new numbers.
I really,
So if you look here, like the numbers I
I wonder
have.
if I can see it on my phone.
So if you look, the numbers I have in here now, it was.
Okay, we're live.
We were at 3.9, we were at 3.9.
I'll reach across the.
Hello, everyone.
I'll find a magic.
We're live.
We were 3.95
Make up your mind.
million. With the numbers I put in, we bought the 4.8. So that's an 850,000.
Yeah. Except screws.
She's worried about it. We're not gonna put one in for 1 year.
I hope so. Yeah, the whole
No,
climate,
especially this year.
you know, he's not up
Well,
against
if you're gonna do it,
lightweights.
you need to do it this year, because next year.
That's true.
And he has, yeah, and he has no, you know.
Red, black, blue.
Except for New Zealand now.
Yeah.
It's like,
We're making notes.
Very well.
you know, the only thing. he
So
does
we
is-
ready to start?
Yeah.
Go ahead. Don't you all open it up?
Yeah.
Are we on? Good evening, everyone. Welcome to a work session of the Long Beach City Council. Tonight, we are going to discuss Ocean Beach Park, our summer 21 revenues and expenses, fiscal year 22 projections, fiscal year 2023 budget assumptions. We apparently have a budget gap between the revenues that we bring in for the beach for the fiscal year versus the expenses. Donna, do you have any comments?
Yes, this presentation is a pickup of the presentation or a continuation of the presentation that was done in December. I think it was December 2nd at one of the meetings. One of the things we have to remember that Ocean Park is a user fee, is user fees generated. We had a lot of the same slides that you will see tonight that we had in December, but what is key and what is most important now is the revenue. We are how we're going to budget, whether we're going to budget for the beach fees to be flat and what it will do overall of the budget, or are we going to increase the fees for the beach. One of the things I want everybody to keep in mind is that for years, the team and I, we just met not too long, right before we came up here. For years, the beach has always been a misnomer, that the beach, everyone says, oh, the beach revenue that comes in, it makes money. And that is because no one ever really looked at what it costs to run the beach. And we have done that in the last year and doing it in this current year. And we put more expenses that goes into operating the beach, like the specials, things like that, so that you can see, so you can see the bottom line of it. So the idea of this meeting tonight, one, is to determine what the new beach fees are going to be. Two is that we have to look at that, yes, we have a gap of over $1 million of where we anticipated that we were going to be, and that we don't anticipate that we're going to make $1 million in the last couple of months. So the team and I are going to look at the budget of the city as a whole to see if there's places that we have brought in additional revenue that can cover that particular, that overage. What the city has done in past years is that they have run a deficit on the beach. The beach has been budgeted at $5 million, but never brought in $5 million. And so you as a council have to make a decision on which way you want to go. I do know I talked to Councilmember Bendo today, and he has done some calculations as well. If the staff, you all can tell me where you want to start at. I mean, the PowerPoint tells you all about how many tickets we sold, how many non-resident tickets, how many resident tickets, what the challenges were, which we can go over. But bottom line, what's important today is the money factor. And we can hit on, when we talk about the money factor, we can talk about the different challenges, how many days there are. So tell me exactly when you want to start. Do you want to start exactly with the money? What we brought in, what the expenses are, and where we anticipate going.
Thank you, Donna. I just want to make sure it's painfully clear or crystal clear that when we talk about budget, we're talking about actually two budgets, because the summer goes across 2 fiscal years. So the immediate question right now is that the current fiscal year, which ends on June 30th, is facing a projected shortfall of approximately $1.1 million. And that covers May and June ticket sales, projected at the same rate that we incurred last year. So that's the immediate issue at hand, and how this council plans to address that. Of course, as part of that, we are going to have to talk about raising, or how to come up with enough revenues or cutting expenses or a combination thereof to go into the next fiscal year, which starts July 1st, which the budget process and presentations are starting next month. So this council has to really decide tonight what is going to be the composition of any new revenue increases, revenue sources, or expense modifications, targets, goals. So I just want to make sure the council and the public is clear that this is a multi-layered issue, which there is no one answer, there's no one panacea. In the past, councils were able to basically not address the issue because they were able to bury it in the budget, I guess. But because of the state fiscal oversight that we are under nowadays, especially with all of the requests that we're making, we don't have that luxury anymore to say, oh, we don't know what to do. So that's why we're here tonight.
Thank you.
Councilwoman McGinnis, I just want to emphasize, if I may, that to everyone in the public, that this is a working meeting. We're not making a vote. Don't make assumptions that what we say here tonight is final, so that I don't have to read on social media. Liz Treston is making tickets for the beach $975. Thank you very much.
Okay. Would the council like to go through the presentation one more time, or cut to the chase?
Let's cut.
Cut to the chase.
Okay, we're going to cut to the chase.
Page 9.
Okay, with that, we'll start at page 9 of the presentation.
Ina and Joe?
I'm sorry, do we need the PowerPoint up for the folks out?
Yeah, I'm telling her.
Okay.
Yeah, page 9.
So we're going to stay here.
You can go down there if you like. When we
Well-
get to John, we need to go down there.
Yeah, because I can't,
Wait, it's right here.
I can't even see the public here.
You have
The public is staff and 2
Well,
people.
it's this
on the paper.
presentation.
It's this presentation.
Oh, I know the presentation. I don't know who's sitting there.
He's just covered.
Oh,
Oh.
well, Roy, you're welcome
Okay.
to sit right
Yeah.
here if you like. Bring your
Right
little
next to you,
sign,
Liz. Okay.
in case no one knows that it's you.
Okay, so Ina, Joe, are you going to walk us through the slide on page 9, please? Nice and slow, please. No.
Can you use Ina,
Use the
please
mic.
use the mic. Yeah, it's fine.
No, the mic's off, I think.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So cutting to chase and starting with this slide is what is it really showing us? It's showing us what we historically made on beach sales and around the beach, and how much it cost us to run the beach. So we're talking that we're $1 million short, right, from the budget. From the budget of $5 million. Why did we come up with the budget of $5 million? Because beach revenue is a user fee, right? And the best practice is to make sure that you cover your expenses associated with that user fee with the revenue that you derive from there. So that's hence $5 million, right, in the budget, and approximately $5 million in expenses you see here. And we just don't sell $5 million worth of beach passes and daily tickets. So we had increased, going here from 2018 to 2022 budget and projection, we had increased the price of the beach passes once. In May of 2021 we did, which affected sales in May and June of 2021, as well as July through September of 2021. So, would you like me to go to the next slide, or?
I just want to make sure that people focus on the second column from the left, the 2022 projection, where if you look at the last row, you see expenses over revenue, basically projecting a shortfall without ancillary revenue from the beach, which is beach comfort, beach volleyball, and other beach revenue. And that's where the 1.3 million is, the shortfall for the beginning of this summer. So essentially, that's really, when you offset the ancillary revenue, the shortfall is 1.1 million, and it's on that 2022 projection column. And that's what we're focusing on right now. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Karen, could you explain to the public what beach comfort is? Because I know a lot of people are confused by that.
Is it chairs?
I defer to Mr. Brand.
Yes.
So you too?
Well, I would ask Donna, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Joe.
Beach comfort is the rent paid by the chair and umbrella rental.
Okay.
Beach comfort is the name of the company, Brian Mercury's company, I believe it is. That rents the beach chair company.
Okay.
And Joe, I'm sorry, what locations?
He has
Does-
a trailer on the beach at Edwards Boulevard.
That's it, okay.
And I'm sorry, and what percentage do we get out of that?
It's
Or is
a
it
flat fee that he
Flat
pays
fee.
for, pays the rent to the city. I think it's somewhere around $9,000, $8,800.
88.
It's contractual.
Okay. The next slide, please.
Okay, so this slide shows exactly what it says, May and June 2021 by ticket category sold, and at the prices that were in effect last summer. And we've actually did very well for 2021 because our budget for 2021 was very conservative. When we were projecting beach revenue, we had not taken any aggressive moves. We were still very cognizant of COVID. So we've done great for fiscal 2021. Now, this slide shows sales in from July to Labor Day of 2021. And that's already new fiscal year 2022. That's the one that we're in right now. That's going to end June 30th. And as you could see at the very, very last cell on the right, it shows $1.1 million. $1,145,224, right? So that's what we earned towards the beach revenue so far out of $5 million. That leaves $3.9 million to make until June 30th, 2022. So what does that mean? How can we make that? We can sell more tickets, right? How much more tickets? I did my little math on the background. You can trust me, or you can do it yourself. But we will have to sell almost 40% more tickets, 38% more tickets in each category, right? Than we did in fiscal, than we did in the summer of 2021. Okay? So that's a lot, right? 40%, that's a lot. And the time frame, Joe, it's 11 days,
Well, in terms of
beach days.
In terms of beach days that exist within this fiscal year, there are 11 beach days. It's the 3 days of Memorial Day weekend, and then the Saturdays and Sundays from June to June 30th.
Yeah. So that does not really leave us with a lot of beach days where you can bring a lot of non-city residents here and make up in a lot of those non-resident categories.
Hey, Joe, just quick, how many tickets did we sell at Christmas time where we put the beach passes on sale?
Just under $6,000 worth of beach days.
Oh, so not a lot. Okay.
Were they all resident or non-resident?
All residents,
All resident.
yeah.
So,
Okay, to move to the next slide.
Somebody have a question?
no, I mean, I just want to point out that the 3.9 million, we do usually, we have a 2.873 million budgeted based upon last year's sales, which is a conservative and proper estimate, right? And then we also have the fact that the sales are front-loaded in May and June obviously because of the seasonal passes. So there is, there's sound assumptions in here, and basically, and that you'll see on page, is it page 12 to 13? That shows you that we're on track with a conservative assumption and that we have a $1.1 million gap.
Yes. So for anybody that's trying to understand, if you go to page 13, it says projected revenue, the $2.8 million. Because what Ina just explained is right now we're looking that we have to make $3.9 million by year end. But the projected sales is $2.8 million, so that's where we get the $1 million shortfall. Any questions from the? Can you hear me? Oh, okay. Does anybody
Can
have
they
any
hear
questions
me?
on that?
Good.
Roy, do you have a question? No. Okay.
You could use my mic.
So actually, what we need that period, and this is what I'm not sure about, we need to increase our sales by 38% during that period. Are you talking full year?
No, for that period.
For that period, to break even? 38%.
Based on using
To stay on budget.
Yeah.
using the same assumptions as last year, which were actually aggressive we actually did incur over 60% of our revenue and for the summer of 2021 by June already.
But we're planning, under these assumptions, we would sell the exact number of tickets during the exact same time.
That's a baseline assumption,
Yes,
yeah.
okay.
Well, we have to keep in mind, we have basically two different types of customers. In May and June, the customers predominantly buying season passes, predominantly. So they don't know what the weather's going to be like in July and August, or June for that matter. So they're going, and these are people who buy these things each year. The customers for probably late June, July, August, early September, a lot of that is weather-based. Those are people who are buying dailies, and so that's very subject to weather conditions, temperature, surf conditions, things like that. So it's sort of two different types of customers depending on when we're talking about.
And actually, it was 71% of our beach revenue came in by June of last year. That is versus 59% in 2020 and 52% in 2019. So people were really excited to buy their beach passes early last year. They're seasonal, and that's the number that we're using currently for the assumptions, which adds up to the 2.8 million. And we still have a shortfall.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's probably a conservative number that we could feel very comfortable about because majority of that revenue comes from the seasonal passes, like John just said. So we have a recurring flow of residents and non-residents who are buying those seasonal passes. So $2.8 million that we're using as the baseline, that's a conservative number, but we need to be at $3.9 million. So it's never, when you're dealing with these issues, it's never one solution. It's usually a combination of different things. So on a previous slide, I showed 38% increase, right, in sales. And on this slide, it shows if we use the baseline of 59,602 passes, right? Projected number of tickets sold. If we're using that number, how much will we have to increase the price of the tickets in order to get close to $3.9 million? So in that first column with the numbers from the left, this is the numbers that were sold, exactly the same numbers that were sold in May and June of 2021. And you could see that some of the categories, that's just hypothetical, right, ideas, and hopefully we'll be able to come up with the solution for this that will be a combination of different things. But if we were just to base this solution on the increase in the prices, that's what it would look like. Majority of the increases are in the seasonal passes, again, because that's what we can rely on, right? The dailies, non-residents are, that's very, that's not very reliable. It depends on the weather, it depends on a lot of other factors, so that would be an optimistic budgeting. And then, if nobody has questions on this slide, I'll move to the next one. So this slide is a combination of two things. What if we were to increase our sales by 15% and increase the prices incrementally, not by as much as the previous slide showed, where would we be? And that also brings us close to closing the gap.
Can I just ask a quick question before
Sure.
you go on? So we've shown historically, it's in one of the earlier slides even, the city has consistently overestimated beach revenue, you know, so we keep coming up with these gaps. So why would we toy with the idea of a 15% increase in sales if we've already been overestimating beach revenue?
This is for informational purposes only. This is not me coming here saying, well, we're going to sell 15% more.
Okay.
And we actually did very well for 2021 budget that Donna and I worked on.
Say your question again, John. Say your question again, John.
The question was, we typically, the city's consistently kind of overestimated beach revenue. So we keep coming up with deficits going back as far as we've checked. So I guess what I was asking was, in this particular scenario where it was talking about a potential increase in sales of 15%, why would we assume an increase in sales when we've already been overestimating and know we're probably not being conservative?
So couple of, again, I'm not proposing
Yeah, I know, you're just
that we're
throwing out
going
a
to-
scenario, I get it.
But, the weather, we're using baseline of last year. And last year, we had a terrible weather, from what I understand. And Joe here, he keeps a better record of that. So, and beach sales are very weather related, obviously. So, while we're not gonna just aggressively say that, well, we're gonna get 40% more, maybe it's reasonable to assume that some of this gap can be made up by increase in sales. And we're coming out of COVID as well. That could have been also a factor.
Also, you have to take into consideration, years past, you did not have all of the expenses for a beach park.
Correct.
Right.
So when they came up with the revenue projections, they weren't probably far off when you don't include all of the expenses. Now we're including the expenses. So now you see a shortfall.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Wait, let me just ask my since it's here. I just for clarification, I know that because of COVID with the railroad, is that included in this or not?
Railroads? Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Ina, you have the income from the summer of 2019, 2020, 2021. Can you tell me what the cost of the beach passes were those years?
Yeah, what was the cost of the beach passes? Not from the top of my head, I do not recall. I know we raised it last year, so I can't tell you, it's not here.
Even if you just have the family, residential and non-residential.
Let us get that for you, Roy, because,
Okay.
yeah, I don't want us to.
I can
You
have
have-
it for you in
What'd you
5
say,
minutes.
Joe, you have it? Yeah, we'll get that for you. So you want to, so we can, what we'll do is we'll get the numbers
Yeah, it,
for the
it,
cost
it
of
just,
each ticket.
it just seems that should be a relationship too, with the amount that we took in as opposed to what it was costing us, costing the residents.
It
and the
only is
non-residents.
relevant when it comes to individual tickets, but when you look at the tickets sold overall, and you look at the actual expenses, actual revenue and actual expenses, if you're not including all of the expenses, that's when it showed. So what we can do is, you'll see where, for example, where it shows the resident individual back on page, no, on one of these, they show the different pages, the different rates or different numbers for each category, then you can see what the dollar amount came in at.
Okay.
It was,
Um,
yeah.
You know, because one of the. $50 on 2019 or 2000?
Just remember, use the mic.
When-
John,
last year
70
was-
for a family?
Fiscal year 20,
Okay.
which was 19,
Fiscal year with
2019,
19,
2020.
so summer of 19.
yes.
Okay. All right, but Donna, what
Use
you.
the mic.
Donna, what you're saying is, yes, I understand that it's number of tickets, but you have all these factors in here. You have 3, 6, 9, 10 different
Yes.
factors, which we haven't gone over yet at all.
Right.
So I'm wondering if price is a factor.
You know, when you have a seasonal business as such as beach revenue, is just like having a golf course in New York or the Midwest. Weather is always a factor. And so the only thing you can do is do your best projection. This past summer, we had days where on the news, they said it was going to be a cloudy, overcast day. People didn't come to the beach. All of a sudden, the sun came out and it was 80 degrees. They could have come to the beach. So we will always have factors. This is a business that is really weather-driven. So unfortunately, when it comes to this type of business, regardless whether we have the revenue coming in, we will always have the expenses, because you will have to
No,
have the
no
lifeguards.
question. I understand that there will always be expenses running a beach.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, you have 10 factors here, and one of them is not cost.
Right, and I think,
Yeah.
Roy, what you're saying is that could drive residents not to buy it. Is that what you're saying?
No,
That-
not non-residents. I mean, I'm looking right now
Yes.
at what it costs a family, and,
Yeah.
you know, and I look at Town of Hempstead, and when I drive by and I see $50 a car, I say, that's ridiculous. Who would go there? Well, 4 adults coming to Long Beach would go there.
Yes.
You know,
Maybe-
and they have parking there.
Yes.
So I think
So-
cost is a factor.
So
It
let me-
is for sure a factor, if I might just, so there was one category of tickets that we did not raise the price for. That's non-residents daily pass.
Right.
That remained the same. And that's the only category that suffered substantial loss in a volume. So with the, like you're saying, cost is a factor. All the other categories of tickets sold did not experience, like if we were to talk about the elasticity of this revenue, we did not see decline or material decline in any of the other categories. So when people looked, when let's say resident individual went from $50 to $70, people did not say, well, let's not buy it for $70. How many beach days we had? 82. I can't do it in my head, 20 by 82, but
So-
that's not a lot. So yeah, and thank you,
Can
John.
we-
John gave me.
Can we stop for 1 minute? You mentioned the challenges. Can you pull up slide number 7? Yes, it's 7, slide 7. Because Roy just brought up a valid point that we talked about all of these on here, factors that impacted our summer, which was challenges, opportunities, weather, the Long Island Railroad, COVID, electronic beach passes, advertising costs, personnel, competition, and connectivity issues. So that I just wanted to make sure that the public was aware of what the factors that impacted the last summer were.
But to be honest, Donna, I understand weather.
Yeah,
I don't know what the impact of the Long Island Railroad, of COVID, of electronic beach passes, of advertising costs, of personnel competition had to do. That I'm sure that there are factors there, but nobody's ever explained that to us.
Okay, we
what
can
those
explain it
factors
now.
were
Joe?
and how they affected.
Joe's coming up to explain it.
Okay.
Yeah, and we did, I mean, in December, we did go through this at length. In fact, I probably stood up here for almost 2 hours. Some of it philosophical, but a lot of it was reports that I brought with me then that I didn't bring with me tonight, but where I literally detailed what the weather was for just about every day of the summer. Chief Gillespie's here tonight. Between hurricanes, shark sightings, Donna mentioned the 2 years before, with COVID, like, we never got a start to our season. I mean, if you remember, just or right until we were about to get started, we still didn't know whether or not there were going to be restrictions as far as the capacity limits for how many people we were going to be able to allow on the beaches. I mean, I remember correctly, we had the press conference with the MTA, I believe it was the 23rd of May, where we announced that we weren't going to be closed to non-residents. So a week before Memorial Day weekend to make that announcement has obviously put us a little bit behind the 8 ball in terms of kicking off the season and not knowing how welcome we were going to be. This on the heels of the prior summer not allowing non-residents to buy beach passes on the weekends. I spoke about the big three, the holiday weekends, Memorial Day weekend. I don't think anybody here doesn't remember what the weather was like on Memorial Day weekend last year, but if you don't remember, it was a deluge. It was in the 50s or the 60s. We didn't do anything on the beach. We had to close the beach for 2.5 days, remove all personnel and resources off the beach because of a storm. Countless shark sightings, which a lot of people don't understand, but the phone calls that we get want to know if the water's going to be open. It's bad enough you're spending $15 to come or bring your family to the beach. If you get here and then you're told that you can't go in the water, it creates a whole nother set of issues. Water conditions, the lifeguards will call us and say, hey, we're restricting swimming. How many times did we have to restrict swimming last summer? There were a number of other factors that caused, a dip in sales. Those are some of the variables. As far as the Long Island Railroad, we have an agreement with the railroad that's begins getting worked on, usually right after the first of the year. Right now, and Mr. Berrios can jump in if he wants to, but we're in the final stages of nailing down our agreement with the Long Island Railroad, and the only reason why it's taken a little bit more time than usual is now and Rich, correct me if I'm wrong, it's now through the legal department of the MTA as opposed to the Long Island Railroad. So there's been a little bit more legal talk or legal jargon that had to go into the agreement.
That's precisely correct. So typically, every year we have an agreement with the Long Island Railroad where they do getaway passes and sell them at a certain rate. It's usually a simple letter agreement. Now that the MTA has taken over, necessarily so has bureaucracy. So their legal department has provided something a lot bigger and thicker than what they used to. So,
and this is to get $70,000 of revenue
right
out of the $4 million and change, right?
Now, there's something that will change, and this is actually a good thing for the upcoming budget. We didn't begin Long Island Railroad exchange passes until July 1st last summer. Okay, so I mean, one side of you is going to say, well, we still didn't sell the number of passes that we thought we should have sold, and that goes back to all of the other variables, the weather, so on and so forth. But what it also has to be taken into consideration is the previous summer we didn't sell them at all. There was no Long Island Railroad getaway package. And if you don't, and one of the biggest factors I always say is we never got a rhythm established. Like, the best thing that can happen for the local economy, and I can speak as a former business owner, I can speak on behalf of Beach Park revenue, I can speak on behalf of all the people that rely on the summer economy. Nothing gets the ball rolling like a beautiful Memorial Day weekend. Like, we can do $500,000 in season pass sales if you get 3 days of beautiful weather on Memorial Day weekend. You'll see a line from the gazebo to Park Avenue to buy the beach passes and have to wait for 3 hours. But if you get a rhythm established early where Memorial Day weekend you need a beach pass, people are coming to buy them. You get another weekend in June, the early June, where the weather is right. Now everybody's already geared towards whether their kids are still in school, whether they're still playing lacrosse and baseball, they want to go to the beach if it's beach weather. So again, the ebb and flow to the weather, particularly in that preseason, is so instrumental in terms of not just the season passes, because you're going to sell them. There's going to be a nice Saturday or Sunday sooner or later, but the daily passes on those 11 beach days that you do have at your disposal.
But Joe, I've been working the beach for 55 years, and the weather is always a factor, and there should be some sort of historical data with regards to the weather, because I remember a lot of Memorial Days where it was absolutely miserable, and I remember a lot, and yes, I work at a different beach, and, a lot of different factors. But what I'm looking for is rather than being specific as to why it was affected just last year, to say bad weather. We've had lots of summers of bad weather. Okay, I remember mushroom weather where it rained for like days after days after days. I'm just wondering how last summer fit in compared to other summers. We don't have much of a historical perspective here. What? The National Weather Service has been doing it for years.
No, but
Yeah.
last year it wasn't. What I was saying is that weather is always a factor. What we're showing you was the challenges last year wasn't just weather.
Yes. And
But
that's-
it was weather to a point that was above and beyond. Like, we had an abysmal summer weather-wise. Again, you could chalk up to if I get every other weekend, every third weekend, or something like that. But I wish I had the weather forecast or the weather reports that we keep them on a daily basis. To your point about the data, we keep them. And again, in December, I outlined them where we say, a golden, sunny, hot day, what we consider to be like a moneymaker. There was maybe one a month. Like, that's how bad the weather was.
No,
And
I remember. I think
it wasn't just, the weather. No, the weather was awful last summer, and it was awful every weekend, and that's the difference.
So
Yeah.
would
Um,
it,
I'm sorry, but when you say the Long Island Railroad was a factor, that's what I'm not understanding. We couldn't sell, well, no, COVID wasn't a factor
No,
last year.
okay,
late
so
in
the
the game.
Long Island Railroad, last year, the year before, we didn't have
Right,
Long Island
yes,
Railroad.
I understand that.
Last year, we didn't start to July because COVID, we didn't know what the COVID restrictions were going to be.
Well,
Their
we
startup,
knew that-
their startup to run the getaway package
Yes.
is somewhere between 2 and 3 months for them to get all of their equipment and all the information entered into all of their computers and their programming and their ticket sale machines. We couldn't tell them 2.5, 3 months out that we were definitely going to be able to honor the railroad getaway package because we didn't know what beach capacity was going to be.
So we didn't know
to
that
start
till
the
May,
summer.
right?
So we agreed,
Yeah.
once we got word that we weren't going to be under those restrictions, we agreed to start the package July 1st. But now those people have already established a rhythm. Like, I hate to say the creatures of habit, but, and it ties into, competition. Maybe they started looking at other places to go to the beach, whether it was jumping on, the ferry from Manhattan to Far Rockaway and going to the beaches there, or jumping in the car, like you said, and driving to whether it's Town of Hempstead or Jones Beach. There's a difference there, and now if the people know to start this season, the railroad package is there. It's part of your option when you get to Penn Station. I can go to Long Beach. There's nothing on the news telling me that they're not selling beach passes to non-residents. It's a much bigger difference.
So at the end of the day, right now, we're still looking at $1.1 million shortfall, so I just want to bring the conversation back to the...
Well,
to-
there's still other factors I'd like to find out about, Ken.
Yes, and thank you for bringing that up.
I know we're short.
So...
I'm looking at the factors.
So, I'm sorry, I just wanted to comment on the Long Island Railroad. I know, Joe, you've explained it twice now that Long Island Railroad passes didn't start, their sales didn't start until July of last year, and we had 69,984 in revenue. So when I'm looking at a $1.1 million shortfall, and I'm trying to close the gap, right? For me, having been doing budgeting for over 25 years, I would say, well, I think we can double that. And
We're going to
okay.
do much better, but at the end of the day, it is a $12 pass, and there's only 11 beach sale days there.
So now, instead of being down 1.1 million, I'm down $1 million, right? Roughly. And that's how teams figure out how to close a shortfall. So I just wanted to bring that up as an illustration of maybe how we can look at each of these items and then come to practical input for the team so that we can close the gap.
Can I go back to my questions, Joe?
Of course you can.
Okay.
I mean, just to touch on personnel, part of that was the lack of personnel, and we spoke about that in December as well. I didn't have a ton of employees, missing cashiers, having people in booths at all of the locations. They're terribly underpaid employees, so I mean, there was some leakage there in terms of people getting through without paying. The electronic beach passes, some of the personnel that we had to tie to that being in a first year and a startup, particularly with the information that had to be uploaded and supervisors that we had to hire additionally in order just to process that stuff, because again, it was a new application for us. The flip side to that is it's going to allow us this summer to have less cashier locations, and it is going to save us some money. And connectivity issues, I think everybody's pretty familiar with that. Up on the boardwalk, each of the cashier locations have credit card machines. Not always very easy to get the credit card machines to work. Dave Frazier is working on different machines. We have representatives from different cell phone companies and from Verizon in particular that are looking to improve our connectivity issues, and I think we're getting pretty close and anticipate that that's going to be something that's remedied before this summer as well. So,
How did we do on electronic beach passes last year?
all things considered, I mean, Ina, do you remember the number offhand? Where we finished up with electronic beach passes? Yeah, it was somewhere around, I think it was like 235,000, which I think it wasn't what we had anticipated, and I'll get you the actual number in the morning. But in hindsight, I guess kicking off something that took us how long to actually put into practice, and giving the newness of it to us, and some of the issues it caused by having a first-year company, doing it with us. We found out where the strengths are in the program and obviously where the weaknesses are, and those are the tweaks that we're making for this summer. I've stated it before in front of the council that the electronic beach pass has, I think the niche is in the daily pass, and that helped us out tremendously toward the end of the year where, it's not, there's nothing downloadable. It's just it's an app. You buy the pass and you show your phone and you're on the beach. It was a much simpler process than trying to buy the seasonal passes online. So we're working on those.
Joe, but when you say 235,000, I'm sorry. When you say 235,000, do you know how many actual passes were sold?
No, I can get you that in the morning.
Okay.
So would approximately $100,000 in personnel and electronic beach passes efficiencies be a reasonable target to lower our gap
Sure.
as a starting point, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're just under $1 million.
So we are now at 900. We're at $900,000. Any takers?
Sorry, the guy who's been yelling at you to use mics all night. Just from a publicity standpoint, on the electronic beach pass side, we were experiencing enough sort of bumps in the road in launching it that we never really did a full-on push for it. So we advertised on our social media, we did it on the website, but we never really did a hardcore blitz of really pushing people to it because our beach park staff, quite frankly, were overwhelmed with some of the back-end issues that Joe alluded to that, got addressed as the season went on and are certainly addressed in between seasons, but we didn't want to kill our own people, so we weren't pushing it overly hard. So we would anticipate, weather permitting, that we would do significantly better this year.
And also, while we're on a roll, in terms of Roy and the weather gods, do we want to add another 100,000 for optimistic towards potential revenue days, sunshiny day fund? I mean, these are factors that would go into an assumption to bridge the gap. Are you based upon history we have last year, and now are you committing to X amount of dollars in fair weather? Is anyone committing to anything?
I don't like that.
I mean,
Farmer's Almanac.
without hiring a meteorologist, I don't really see.
And they're not quite accurate. So.
No.
Right.
Oh, God.
So this is why, this is a great example of, again, why a budget is an estimation process. It's not going to be 100% perfect. And so this is what the team deals with every day.
So maybe two things. One is we hopefully will be able to increase the number of passes that will sell electronically. I do not know at this point if that will add to the revenue or it will simply be that the passes are not going to be sold from the trailer or gazebo and just bought online. So it might have zero impact on our overall revenue. And another thing is that this conversation is ever so important because the city is coming out of a very, very, very strenuous financial situation. We're just getting on the right path where we're getting to the point where maybe in a couple of years we don't have to have this discussion and guess on the weather because weather changes from year to year. So that's what your fund balance is for, right? And we just don't have that luxury right now, so have to be as conservative as possible.
You mentioned the electronic beach passes. I can tell you that there's only 2 people in my household, so when I buy 6 passes and only pay like $160, I'm not sure if I'm being charged right. Is that something that we could work on, or is that an issue?
That's actually a question for Joe. Joe, how would we create a system where we would control the number of passes that are sold to the residents?
Basically enforce what the prices are?
Right, but then again, do we think that maybe you're buying extra passes, right?
Yeah, right, and shouldn't I be paying $50 or $75 for each of those passes over the 4 family passes?
Yeah, I'm a little bit confused by the question. A resident family pass last summer was $90.
Right.
Which
is
Which is 2 adult passes and passes for any children you have residing in your household between the ages of 13 and 17.
And how many family passes can one resident purchase?
3.
So can we consider instead of buying 3, they buy 2? Is that, again, this is a working meeting, is that something to consider?
I'm sorry, I missed the first part of it, Liz.
So we're allowed to buy 3. Personally, I always thought it was 2 and purchase individual tickets. So if instead we buy, say, a resident can buy 2 family passes, which would include 4 adults instead of 6 adults. Would the...
I'm just saying I thought I should have been charged, I assumed 4 passes, $90 plus $140 is $230. I've never paid over $200, so that's what I'm basically...
If you bought 2 resident families, it would be $180.
Okay, so that's my 6 passes.
No, that's your 4 passes.
Oh, that's my 4. But I got 6. So I'm just... I'm not under, I guess I'm...
You got 6 adult passes, so they didn't charge you for 1 set of adult passes, is what you're saying?
I believe so. I mean, we can look up the file from last year, but...
Really what we have to do, this is something that we have to work on, is to ensure what a person is purchasing, they're purchasing it at the correct price. And so we have to make sure we come up with a system for this coming beach year to say we sold X amount of family passes, and how many ever we sold, we have the exact same amount of money.
We close that out every day.
Yeah, so that's what we'll have to do, is to ensure that.
I'm just saying, that it's really that the people who aren't buying passes are buying the right number are being charged the right amount for the number of passes they're buying, because there's only 2 people in my house, right? So shouldn't I be paying more for... No? I'm supposed to be just paying 180?
Yeah, the family.
Well, if you're
pass.
paying just for two people, you're just paying 90.
Mhm.
That gives you two
Right.
adult passes.
Okay.
There's two issues. One is the number of family passes that you're allowed to purchase.
Right.
Right.
What you're getting at, and then what is included in that family pass purchase. So if you wanted to limit the number of family passes that an individual can buy, that you could do. But I can tell you that it's impossible for us to police.
Got it.
And we've had this conversation before.
Unless we do it through electronic beach passes.
Right. We don't have any mechanism to tell if Roy Lester goes to, for argument's sake, to the gazebo and buys 3 resident family passes, which he's entitled to buy, and gets in his car and drives down to the office on Laurelton Boulevard and goes there and purchases another 3 resident family passes, which he is entitled to do. There's no mechanism in place where I'd be able to tell that Roy Lester just bought his 3 family passes at the gazebo.
So
Maybe we should have one location.
we don't keep an electronic database of,
Of who buys? No.
so why, when I buy a pass, do they record the serial numbers on the passes?
Because if you lose it, we can trace it back to you.
And a good Samaritan turns it in.
So it's not automated.
No, it's not automated.
And the numbers that you're alluding to also, John, those are the numbers, those are our start and finish numbers for the day. So resident family starts at this number, ends at this number, the accounting at the end of the day has to add up as well, so.
Right, just one little addition, the serial numbers are also used in city court for enforcement purposes. So when we have tickets, I can contact Joe and ask him, does this person indeed have a beach pass if they were issued a citation?
And
I'm sorry. On that. Rich, so Joe has those numbers in a database.
I can ask Joe if a particular resident has a pass indeed issued.
And Joe, you have to look that
Why?
up by
So we're
hand, or
not
you have
gonna
it in a
sell-
database?
He has to look that up.
We don't have a database for this.
I think it's an Excel spreadsheet that's hand entered. So that's why the electronic beach passes, when you can scan, you're saving, you're
So-
more efficient.
If it's hand-entered, it's in a database. So when you ask Joe, you know, number 1, 2, 3, who does it belong to? Does,
Joe pulls a book that says this pass number was sold on May 31st. Then Joe goes and pulls the whole stack of cards that was sold on May 31st, goes through all the cards, finds those beach pass numbers and says, here's a photocopy, Rich, of the person that purchased those beach passes. There's no database, there's no spreadsheet, there's no nothing.
wow.
Well, on my end, I would have no reason to know, right? So in city court, I would get a summons with an individual's name
No,
and
I know,
address.
no, just the very fact, you know, like Liz says, 1950,
Yeah.
you know. Anyway, Joe, I do have another question. The advertising costs that you put down as a factor.
That we can't afford the advertising costs.
What were the advertising costs
No,
last year?
like, in general, for us to advertise that the beach is open, you know, we don't have, you know, it's not built into our budget, an advertising cost for us to be able to say, the beach is open, you know, nothing more than what we can do, you know, with the city's website, or the city's Facebook page, or Twitter, Instagram, you name it, but we don't have the means to have an aggressive
So there are-
advertising
Right,
campaign.
so there are no advertising costs. I didn't.
I don't have them built into the beach park budget, no.
That's correct.
Okay, all right.
Well, does the LIRR, their advertising of our, you know, does that cost us, or is that a partnership? Is that?
And that, again, and that ties into advertising costs. The MTA does that for us. They will advertise it on all of their literature. Last summer, they came down and did one that hit, I guess, most of the major network channels. We did one up on the boardwalk with them. You know, we can only hope that they'll do another one, you know, but that takes
think-
care of one demographic
Yeah.
of people that come.
Didn't New
use the
York
beach.
State do something for us 2 years ago? I remember the
I don't know.
student,
The
they
video?
had the students on it. And we used to have an advertising budget for the beach, about 325,000, actually.
I think that was a grant we had gotten one year.
Was a grant?
Yeah, it was a
And
grant.
did we keep any data whether that worked or not?
I doubt it. I doubt it.
I wasn't here, sorry.
So,
Yeah,
what I want to do,
If
what,
I
wait a
remember
minute, Ina.
correctly,
What I want to do is to bring us back on track. We're here to figure out not what happened, is what we need to do in the future. One is to cover the gap. There are several ways you came up with $200,000, $300,000 to cover the gap. What I talked to the staff about today, we will look at to see where we are with the budget as a whole, to see and do a projection, to see if we have any savings there. Because of how the city is being scrutinized, we should not be hitting fund balance. We never should try to hit fund balance, but the key on all of this is what are we going to do for next year? What rates are we going to have for the 22-23 budget so that we can get this on the agenda for Tuesday so we can complete the budget?
Donna, would you say that we have to come up with at least $500,000 for this current?
Yes.
At least?
You would have to come up with at least $500,000. We will go back and start looking at where we are right now. I don't want to take away from history, but right now I'm more concerned about the present and the future because I can't reverse the history.
Right.
Donna, that might be true, but there are two factors to this. Number one is the revenue, and the other is the expense. All right, and I'm trying to get at the expense. I'm trying to figure out what's causing us not to do well on the beach, what we could do to get more money, more people in. So I'm trying to look at...
I understand that,
Okay,
Roy.
I'm trying to look at the cost and how it could affect the revenue.
Okay,
And that's
the
why I
co-
asked
the
about
cost-
advertising.
Okay, but the cost here are challenges. If we talk about advertising costs, that's an expense. What we're trying to figure out is how we get additional revenue.
And you know what? You look at any newspaper, it's full of advertisements. And they're not doing that just to give away the money. The advertisements brings in the revenue. And I'm just
agree.
wondering if there's any past data that indicates how we could increase.
So
Okay.
that's why I keep saying, no, there is no past data. We are now starting to keep data on what we can do, but everything that we try to do, we have to take into consideration, it comes at a cost.
Right. Right. So say we invest approximately $500,000 in advertising costs, which would be a really nice advertising budget. So maybe we would bring in, $1 million in revenue, right? So that's a net $500,000.
Yeah, but we have
Right.
no data to support that right now.
Right.
Have we even spoken to an expert on this? I mean,
Well, it's funny, I just remember my stepdaughter-in-law, when I used to buy the paper and get my tea, and I had my newspaper, she said it was so cute that I had a newspaper, because she doesn't read a newspaper. She uses the internet. So, it's basically online advertising, and, the thing is...
So we can get an expert, but that's a cost. That's a cost. Nobody's going to come in here for free and say, in order to get additional advertising or to do this to get beach revenue to come in at that cost.
Donna, there are a lot of advertising agencies who would like to sell themselves to us. And
At
they
a
would come in.
cost. There are a
No,
lot
no.
of people that would like to sell themselves.
Right.
Bottom line is they still want to get paid.
If we use them, but in the meantime, they can come in and say, hey, this is what we could accomplish. It doesn't hurt to ask them. It doesn't hurt to ask people, what could you do for us before you charge us?
Okay, Roy, I'm not going to debate the issue.
No,
I
I'm not
agree with.
asking
No,
to
no,
debate
hold
it.
on, let me
Just-
finish. I'm not going to debate the issue. I've been in this field a long time. If I call or anybody else calls an advertising agency, they give us ideas and we use those ideas, that's a cost. We cannot use those ideas. They will make us sign an agreement saying you cannot use any of the ideas. So if we want to go out and get an advertising firm, no professional is going to give you information free. Nobody.
Donna, can I just interject to circle back to your point of let's dive in. Did John, did you have some projections that you worked
Yeah.
on, or are we?
Yeah, what I did is I put together a spreadsheet that has some historical data in it and allows us to basically play with pricing on each of the categories and show how it impacts revenue. So, but just a couple of things before we jump down that rabbit hole is, you know, one thing I think everybody needs to understand, and I guess this is probably not for the people in the room who probably realize, maybe for anyone watching, is whether it's through beach fees or your taxes, you are paying for the beach. So if there is a gap that is not being covered by beach pass sales, you are paying it through your property taxes. So your property taxes will go up to pay for that gap. So it is in the interest of the residents of the city to have the people who use the beach, who include a lot of non-residents, to pay for the expenses of the beach. That's what the beach fees do. So people need to keep that, you know, for the people that are going to complain about, oh, you're going to raise the beach fees $10, oh my God, you know. Well, guess what? If we don't, then you're going to pay for it through your property taxes anyway. You're paying for it either way. Wouldn't you rather have the non-residents help pay for that use our beach? And the other thing that, again, perspective, a $90 beach pass for a family of 4 for the entire beach season costs 27 cents a day per person. What the heck can you do for 27 cents a day? I mean, there's got to be some perspective here on, you know, you can't go to a movie, you can't do anything for 27 cents. Here we're letting you on one of the nicest beaches in the state for 27 cents. And to keep it one of the nicest beaches in the country costs money, because we have to clean that beach, we have to pick up the trash, the cigarette butts people leave, the garbage, the seaweed, all that stuff, that costs money to give you that beautiful beach. If you don't want to pay for that, we could give you a dirty, ugly beach. So, I mean, there's some perspective to keep here. Before we get into the numbers, what we haven't, and this was a little bit to Roy's point, a little bit about potential other revenue streams. We've talked about this now, and I can't see Joe because the podium's in the way, but we've talked about this for a couple of years. But you know, we all know at 6 o'clock there's huge crowds of people waiting to get on the beach because it's free, starting at 6, and that's when the lifeguards go up. So we got people swimming with no lifeguards on duty. Now I know, and I've been in the truck with Paul going up and down the beach trying to chase those people out of the water on many occasions. But the simple fact is, it happens. So now we got to keep rope crews on and things like that. That's an expense. The simple fact is, people don't want to pay $15 to get on the beach at 4 o'clock in the afternoon or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So we have floated the idea for at least the last couple of years. Should we look at starting at maybe 4 o'clock, charging $5 or $7 to get on the beach, to give those people incentive, because nobody's going to pay $15 to get on the beach at 5 o'clock. So should we look at potentially having a lower fee, $5, $6, $7, whatever it needs to be, start letting people on at 4 at that price? Maybe we'll generate some revenue for ticket sales that wouldn't happen otherwise, and people will be swimming when there's lifeguards on duty. That's one. 2, we got a lot of companies doing business on the beach in the mornings before the beach opens. They're doing yoga classes, they're doing exercise classes, they're doing all kinds of stuff on the beach. They're using our beach to generate profit for themselves without paying us for using our beach. Maybe we need to be looking at, they have to get a permit and pay some kind of fee to do that. Another thing we've been talking about, the Long Island Railroad Garage, starting to utilize that for parking. Maybe we do something similar to Jones Beach. We offer a package. I'm throwing a random number out here. I'm not saying this is what to do, but $50 gets you 4 beach passes and parking in the Long Island Railroad garage. So we have to start getting outside of the box, thinking about how to bring in new stuff. The other thing, sponsored events on the beach. We had Quicksilver here, what was that, 5, 6 years ago?
No, much.
11,
How long ago was
11, 12 years ago.
Was it that long?
Before the
Whatever it
summer.
was. You know, we had Quicksilver on the beach. You know, until the people in charge of it at that time screwed the thing up. That thing was wildly popular. You know, so again, we have opportunities to do things that we tend to keep our head down and do the same thing we've done every year, time and time again. We have to start thinking outside the box and start thinking of other ways we could generate revenues. So, like I said, before we get into the specific beach fees, I just wanted to throw some of those things out, and I'm sure there's other things we can do. Those are a few I came up with. But we have to look at that stuff, and now's the time to do it, because if we're going to do it this summer, we have to do it now. So, for example, if we're going to start offering fees for whatever, $7, $5, whatever it is, at 4 o'clock, we got to decide that so it goes in this year's budget. You know, so same with charging companies to use the beaches in the morning for their business, or
In the garage, too.
or the garage, you know, if it's going to generate revenue parking in the garage. Now, I don't know if there's a legal issue of can we charge anything above the normal metered rates, or
On a weekend.
on a weekend. I don't know if we get into anything sticky there. We'd have to look at that. But or the other option is make it a paid, you know, paid parking. Even if we don't want to sell beach passes at a package, make it a paid lot. You know, so.
Even better.
Out of the 128,000 tickets sold last summer, 92,000 were sold to non-residents, and so that's 71%, right, were from non-residents. But please, let's remember that 52% of our total revenue came from non-residents, okay?
And one other thing, Ina, when you did your expense calculations, you don't have to get up. You included the cost of the specials, but did not include in that any revenues we might have received from summonses they wrote over the summer. Ron, I don't know if just off the top of your head you have any idea maybe what they generally write.
I know we wrote 11,000 summonses, 1,100 summonses there, I do not know.
Right, and I don't know what percentage of that comes to us versus, you know.
100% would come to us, it's just that it's not easy to get out of the books.
But the specials that are included on that expense slide, they're only those specials that are on the beach, right? So they're not the specials that are going around and writing tickets in the city year-round and not on the board.
Well, no, the specials that we hire
beach.
the young
The
got people.
$300,000 on an expense is just those that are on the beach.
Right, but they write tickets as well.
Yeah, but I don't think we have a data on how much they collect.
Okay, but what I'm saying is that is another revenue source that's tied to beach operations because they are hired as part of the beach operations for the summer. Even though they may wander into other parts of the city, you know, they're predominantly on the boardwalk and things like that.
I think we're almost running down a...
It's,
You know, you can, just so I'm talking into the mic for the people at home, I think we're running down a rabbit hole here, or a wormhole here, because if you start to think about everything that ties to the beach, well, there's parking summonses that happen down there. That's because people are on the beach. So do we want to apply that? Well, I have 2 cops that drive on the beach. Well, they're going to drive on the beach anyway, but they're driving on the beach. So do I tie that to it? You know, so if you don't just accept where you are, you're never going to be able to at least wrap your hands around where you want to be. You know what I mean? So, I mean, I could go on and on and on with the type of expenses. One of the things you said, if you took, I was thinking as soon as you said $500,000 for advertisement, you do $500,000 for advertisement, you put another 500,000 people on the beach, I need more cops.
Right.
it's not just specials. I need cops to do that. So it starts to get to be, where do we want to just kind of wrap our hands around where we are and try to do the best we can with what we have? And, you know, so.
And then add data points for future years
Correct.
that we should be starting to analyze, like
Correct.
break even for specials, right? Where you compare costs to tickets. That's
Right.
a new data point that we should track.
Exactly. So, I mean, we could try to start to collect the data even from the summonses that we get.
Yeah.
But the problem is, some of those summonses are written in other places. Do I want to attribute it to the beach? Or it gets very complicated when you really try to pin it down to a precise number.
Well, Ron, the problem here is the beach is paying for those specials. They're not paying for your police or, you know, any
the
of those
city-
other tickets.
I look at it as the city's paying for the specials, and this is the first
But it's-
year that they've ever attributed the $300,000 to the beach.
Okay, but it's coming, you know, when they're looking to raise the beach fees, it's because of the expenses
Correct.
of the specials. I mean, not only the specials.
one of the
but
assumptions
that's-
that I believe-
Yes.
yes, I
So
agree.
that's why I don't think it's that kind of a rabbit hole, because we're only talking about those specials that we're paying $300,000 for. Those are the only tickets, nothing, you know. I agree with you
No,
that
those
there are a lot
specials
of
write
things.
tickets on the street, too. They'll walk off the beach, and they'll walk around those parking lots, and they will write tickets there, and they're also going to be doing booting on the beach, for down on the beach. When we start to identify cars that are coming into the city that have no registration, you know, suspended.
So that whole 300 shouldn't be attributed to the beach, you're saying?
I don't know how to thin slice it for you, is what I'm saying. That's the rabbit hole that we're going down. The thin slicing of the data that we're trying to do here, I mean, we'll spend $100,000 on trying to figure it out.
Again,
you know?
yeah, that's why we have to stick with estimates and agreed
Right.
upon assumptions that are logical.
I'm sorry for
Yeah, no.
interrupting, so.
It just reminds me of a cop stat analysis or something, right?
Karen, did you put in the optimistic weather?
Okay, so with
We looked it up, and it's going to be dry and hot.
so that would be 100,000, right?
Yeah.
Then we have bendoisms, that's another 100,000. 1, 2, 3, so we're, 1, 2, 3. So we're down to about, we have about 400,000 in estimated opportunities. We still have a shortfall of 700,000. We have to get a little bit more than that. So we have some other options which we can look at, Mr. Bendo, from your analyses.
Did you put in your analysis if we up the access fees from $20 to 25 or 22?
What do you mean by access fees?
For the excess, for me, my pass.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we have the ability, if, I don't know if they want to put it on the screen,
It's-
to play with all the numbers. So I just put some numbers in there as a starting point, but it was just, like
It's
I
on
said.
the hard drive there, if you want to bring it up.
So John put together his own sensitivity analysis, which basically is a gap, is in between the pricing increases that ENA provided as somewhere lower than that, correct, John?
Well, I used ENA as a baseline.
Right.
And then, like I said, you could go higher on something, lower on something, and it'll show you the impact.
What are your general
Not sure
thoughts,
why it's not for-
having done that?
Well, this is just my personal opinion. We have some categories that I think are way underpriced.
Okay.
The military
So
ticket
that's the same, they're all, that's $20 one.
and the access ticket are $20. That's absurd to me, that they're only $20. Even if we doubled it to $40, that is still less than 50 cents a day.
Yeah, I'm having deja vu all over again from last year.
So,
So how much would that bring?
Again, how many, like $5,000?
I don't know.
right, so what I did is, in the spreadsheet, if we want to move down there to look at it, I put in what the total projected FY22 beach revenue would be if we made any, based on price adjustments we make, that would impact any sales in May and June.
Okay.
So, So for example, at the current prices, if we sold the same number of passes in May and June that we sold last year,
Right.
we should wind up at the 3.95 million that Ina had come up with. By
By-
changing the prices
For the-
that is sold basically for the whole summer, for May, June, July, and August. But, so I just, again, most of them are close to the numbers Ina was posing. I changed a few because I thought some of the stuff that Ina didn't change, I thought was
And that would be the
way
senior citizens
underpriced.
pass, too.
Do you mean the 3.9 through June or for the entire summer? Because the 3.9 is through
For
June.
FY '22.
Okay.
So, for example, with some of the prices I put in, which a lot of them, like I said, are Ina's proposed numbers. I changed a couple of ones, lower ones. It comes out to 4.8 million. So that's an additional $850,000
For this fiscal.
for FY '22, which would
Okay.
effectively mean what's sold in May and June.
And is there a consistent percentage increase throughout the categories?
Generally.
Yeah.
But again, like I said,
Well, it would
we
like
can
be
play
your-
with that
your
and put in
senior
anything we
passes,
want.
Your senior pass, your veterans pass, and your access pass or persons with disabilities pass.
What
Like
about
for-
them?
Like, for example,
What about them?
What?
What about them?
But make them higher.
Okay.
$20.
Right, the access and the military passes are currently
And
20
seniors,
bucks.
too, And the senior.
Well, and
How old, Joe, how old is a senior?
62.
yeah, seniors 20 bucks as well. That's, well, I get you want to be cognizant of people's financial state. For example, as a veteran, I could buy a military pass for $20. I should be paying more than that.
Well, we talked about utilizing the nonprofits throughout the community regarding people that needed, if they
Oh,
couldn't
yes.
afford.
Yeah, but that's separate.
separate.
That's separate. This is regarding what we should be charging people that buy passes.
Right, well-
So, for example, we sold, in May and June, last year, we sold 1,275 military passes at 20 bucks each. You know, if we sold them at 40 bucks each, we're looking at 20, you know, we're looking at
What's the net?
another, let me see here, sorry. About another 25,000.
Okay, so basically for all other passes with your proposed increases, we're adding 25,000 towards the gap.
Well, that's just for the military, and I'm just using the number I put in there. That's not saying that needs to be the number.
Yeah, I'm just doing an estimate
You
to
know,
try to figure.
same with the access. Last year, we sold 688 in May and June for 20 bucks. Again, if you did it for 40 bucks,
35,
you know,
Yeah,
whatever it is.
whatever it is. Like I said, we can
Gotta
put
be
it
more
in the
than 20.
spreadsheet and see the impact,
Yeah.
but.
Okay, so again, through all the other categories, we're looking at maybe $100,000,
Yeah.
right? Okay. And then, so that means we're at $500,000, right, roughly?
But
And
that's
then-
saying that we're agreeing to the incremental, what he's just saying? Or are you just kind of
I'm just
parsing it?
tallying.
No, these are just numbers I put in to see what would happen.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's why this is a working meeting.
No, right,
Emphasizing
right, but
again,
I'm saying that there's some
those
factors
outside-
there that,
Outside the
yeah.
room.
John,
Yeah.
you want to tell, we got it on the screen now. So you want to tell me the new prices for a ticket?
Suggested.
Yeah,
Which tab are you on? You on the Ina tab or the Bendo tab? So if you look at the column, it's third from the right, new ticket price, new prices per ticket for May, June, FY. That's just numbers I put in there to play with.
So like where you have the $85?
Yeah.
Okay, what did you change, what do you want me to change it to?
Well, that's just
Oh, okay.
That's a new price.
that's a new price, because the current price is 70.
Donna, I don't think the public can see that. Because I have it on here. So the public can't see it.
You wouldn't see it.
Because you,
Because you
the
can't-
other ones,
You can't see it on Fenton's.
oh, okay. All right.
So, I mean, to give you a bottom line summary, using this spreadsheet that I put together, if the prices stayed the same, the total projected revenue for FY22, so that's that's July, August, September of last summer, and May, June of this summer, like I said, was 3.95 million. That's with current prices. Based on those prices you see in there, the new ones, we would bring in 4.8 million. So like I said, that's an $850,000 increase, which puts a huge dent in that gap. Oh, but it also brings the revenue, quite frankly, more in line with what it's really costing us to run the beach. What's that?
Joe, when was the last time we had beach increases in 2 successive years?
That's not my spreadsheet.
I was looking at my phone.
When
Karen, I'll have to look that up. I don't ever remember there being increases in 2 consecutive years.
Didn't think so.
I was away for a little while, but I don't remember there ever being one.
And that's the challenge. We've got people dealing with 8% inflation year over year. So that means just for us to tread water, we have to charge more.
I mean, the cost of doing business alone at the beach is contractually goes up every year, doesn't it?
Well, that's the other issue. We have to deal with the inflation too, buying supplies and contractual obligations for raises and things like that, and then stuff that we can't even control. The state comes down and tells us how much we have to put in the pension for these people and what the medical costs for them are.
Our colleagues.
You know. Yeah, but what I'm saying is that stuff we can't even control. That's stuff the state tells us.
Mm-hmm. But what also is missing here is the fact that running a beach well is an insurance policy that you can't actually quantify. If you don't have the proper staffing and proper safety, you're going to pay in Rich's department lawsuits. So we have to deliver quality. We have to deliver the quality that we've been delivering, thanks to our employees. And how do you do that under these just very, very difficult conditions is something that we still have to face.
And I'm going to circle back to, if people don't pay it through beach fees, and we know the non-residents pay a lot of the beach fees, then the residents are going to pay it through their tax bills.
The residents pay 50% of the beach fees, but purchase 70% of the tickets.
Right.
Right.
But that means 50% of the beach revenue is coming from people that don't live in Long Beach.
Mm-hmm.
So what's happening is the people who do live in Long Beach are subsidizing the non-residents who are using our beach because they're paying that gap through their tax bill.
Unless we increase the prices for the residents who are using the beach, which is a user fee. So basically, if you want to use the beach, we have to cover the cost. So we are trying, by raising fees, you're basically saying, this is a service that you value, and this is how much it costs to run it. Therefore, we, as responsible budgeters, have to charge X. Otherwise, every single resident pays for it through the property taxes.
Yeah.
So you use or you lose.
What you're doing is you're charging the people who use the
beach
for the use of the beach.
Right.
You're making them pay what it costs to operate the beach. And a lot of that is being covered by non-residents. So it is in everyone's interest to try to recoup that through the beach fees because non-residents are paying a lot of those.
And we don't have the luxury of the rose-colored glasses where we cannot face these facts.
Right.
Like what was done in the past.
Well, if I may, I've listened to, all evening about how we have to increase fees to cover the costs. I have not heard one word about decreasing the cost. Can we talk about that?
Sure.
Yes, all evening I've heard about what we can do to increase the cost to the residents and the non-residents to match, to have the revenue that meets our costs, but I have heard nothing about decreasing the costs. Can we talk about that for a bit?
Sure. Which costs are you looking to decrease?
All of them.
I have lifeguards here. Chief Gillespie can come up and he could talk about decreasing his cost. I have beach maintenance here. They could talk about decreasing how it would impact them and decreasing their cost. Because we're running lean and mean. So I'll have them come up. And you're right, it should be fair. And not just talk about increasing revenue, let's talk about decreasing costs. So Chief Gillespie?
I mean, John's idea with the specials, I mean, that's a straight cost where we're not getting any of the benefit. That should be, something that we can address. But we don't know what the benefit is at this point.
I'll have Ron come up and talk about decreasing the number of specials.
No, they make money for us, but we don't get any of the money.
We can,
No, we don't.
We do, we
The
just
city.
we don't track it as
the
beach
beach,
revenue.
right.
It goes into the pot.
But when we're tracking beach revenue, when we're talking about raising the beach fees for the residents and the non-residents, it's based on that tracking. So in all fairness, if they're asked to pay for the specials, they should have the advantage of what the specials bring in.
sure, I would just again, to caveat, it's an estimate, because.
I understand, but,
Okay.
Yes,
any
well-
estimate's better than nothing
Yeah,
right now. Right now,
correct,
we have
correct,
zero.
and hopefully
Well,
that,
first of all, we're just now starting to put in the expense for the specials. It's never been done in the past. That's why people always thought that the beach made money, they didn't have all the expenses. One of the things that you have to know, it goes in the pot. A special can write a citation, but who determines how much that individual is going to pay for that citation is the courts.
Correct.
And so that is something, that's data that has to be, if can be gotten, is for the future. That, we can't do that now.
Why don't we have historical data on that? We know exactly how many tickets they wrote. Ron said exactly how many tickets they wrote.
But it doesn't matter. They could have wrote 50 tickets. That doesn't mean that when they got to court, we received the amount for 50
No, but
tickets.
we know how much we received. Yes,
No, you don't.
Sure you do.
How?
The court keeps track of every fine that they settle, every one.
Sure, but they don't
So-
distinguish, so when the court processes its fees, it processes it by docket number,
Yes,
right? So it's per ticket.
yes.
The court does not rifle through every single ticket and divide based upon this happened at the beach, this happened here.
No,
What they
but if
do is
it's-
if they give us a general
So
breakdown.
I could weigh in a little bit.
But if a special writes a ticket, a special that we're paying, the court knows how much they charged for that ticket, how much we got for that ticket.
So they do and they don't. So they can give you, they can tell you how much money they brought in revenue in a given month, but the system that they use down there is a state system to track these things. So what you're asking for, they would have to go through the docket of every single ticket and then actually compare what happened in court and whether or not it got paid at the window, or if they went on a payment system. Sometimes people pay portions of it and they leave. So what they do is they group it. It's not our system. It's not our accounting system. It's not done the way you're saying it. It's done very differently. It's done by the court. It's done by a state system and it's done by docket. So they can go to the docket and tell you exactly how much that ticket was for, so someone getting a ticket for not having a beach pass, okay? But you'd have to know all the dockets, so you'd have to do a research project of going through the entire summer's worth of tickets, which are, there's 1,100 of those, but there's 30,000 of them written, you know, in general, 30,000 dockets, if you will.
So you have no idea how much money was collected by the specials?
I have no idea how much money was collected. I know how many summonses they wrote,
Yeah.
and I know how much the fines should have been, but that number never equals what the money that comes in. I can tell you that whatever does come in goes directly to the city and into the general fund.
Right.
That I can tell you.
But we have no idea. I mean, we might be spending 300,000 and achieving
I can
nothing.
tell you that it's costing money.
Well, I think this.
It's not, it's costing.
It's a great analysis to look at, because you want to match your costs with your revenues.
If you're assigning costs
Yes,
to them,
yes.
yes,
So,
you
so,
should.
so the thing is,
Absolutely.
I think we're on the right track. This is a great point, something we should look into. I think it could be a little bit more involved than we may think, but, let's see if our 300,000 that we're spending is at least covered by
He
the
just
money
said
they're
it's
bringing
not.
in.
Definitely not.
It's
It's not even
He
close.
just said it's not.
Oh, he's
But
not
what-
even close.
It sounds like, given the system we currently have, about the best we could do probably is, to Ron's point, we know what was written in a given month. Make a
Okay.
conservative assumption and say a certain percentage could be attributed
25%,
to the
yeah.
specials at the beach. That's what a budget does. It's an estimate.
Actually, the bottom line is, you got specials on the beach to keep order.
Yeah, that's
Right.
the other
That's
fact.
what, they're going
They're
to
not
be
there to
there
make
whether
money.
we make 300,000 or where you make 25,000. They are there to keep order.
Yes.
That is the intent of the specials being on the beach. So we have to keep that in mind instead of worrying about if they brought in enough revenue to cover them. Because if we find out that they did not bring in enough revenue to cover them, do we cut back? And if we cut back, what does that do to the people or to the order on the beach? So that is like the police, the fire, it is to keep order. So Chief Gillespie, we're going to talk about, you talked about reducing expenses, we're going to talk about the lifeguards.
How we hire the lifeguards is we have to wait till June 1st, all right, until we find out who does not come back. That's the
Wow.
way we hire lifeguards. We have not hired a surplus of lifeguards for a long, long time because we keep filling in with the people that are gone. So you basically got the same number every year. Do you understand what I mean by that?
No.
All right, so,
You hire lifeguards June 1st, but you have Memorial Day. You have lifeguards Memorial Day.
yeah, we have full staff of lifeguards for Memorial Day, but we have to wait till that point. This was about, I'd say about 8 or 9 years ago. The past city manager cut 20 lifeguards right out of there. And we have never regrouped those lifeguards again. So we're working every year with the same amount of lifeguards,
Which is how many?
about 150. So it is difficult because, with days off and kids taking leaves and it's hard to maintain a good staff. So, we do the best we can, and we have done the last 14 years. We haven't lost anybody on duty. After the evening is a different situation. Mr. Bendo there has taken rides on the beach and watched the people that are there going into the water. And we really, because of our easy access beach that we have here, not like the town of Hempstead and Jones Beach where they close the parks.
Right, Paul, I'm not asking about that. I'm just asking about the money. Do your kids get health insurance?
No.
What benefits do they get?
Just a pension from the state.
And how much?
I have no idea what the pension is for the state.
Also, you need to mention that toward the end of the summer, you have a shortage.
I have a big shortage of
We know
lifeguards
that.
at the end of the
Yeah,
summer.
everybody does.
Yeah, but since we were cut back, we're still really short on lifeguards at the end of the summer. I mean, I have to close beaches sometimes, on the residents that have to send them over to another beach because we don't have enough lifeguards to stay open. That's the problem we have down there. And it's not easy because,
Go ahead, Ina.
Fringes, we pay FICA, of course, right? 7.65%. We pay workers' comp.
Which is,
Our total workers' compensation insurance is about $2 million for the city. Their salaries are included there. And lifeguards are offered to participate in the pension system, and a lot of them do.
so how much do we spend on lifeguard pension?
On the lifeguard pension,
Yeah,
it
each year.
depends from year to year. That contribution is actuarially determined. So every year we get a bill from the state, and depending on the tier, that's a civil service, right? So depending on the tier into which they were hired, we apply percentages based on that.
What did we spend last year for lifeguard pensions?
We don't allocate pension specifically to the lifeguards, but I can tell you as a percentage. So one of the slides,
Right, I'd like,
I think it's about 35% in total that we allocate to all part-timers, including lifeguards, because we treat lifeguards as a part-timer. So all the insurances that all the fringes that I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said insurances. All the fringes that we are offering to the other part-timers are open to the lifeguards, and we do it on a total, so we come up with the total amount of the expense that the city pays for the fringes and divides it by the total salary of the part-timers, and comes up with that 35% factor, and that's what we applied here.
So basically, all lifeguards are considered part-timers,
Yes,
and you consider the benefits for the lifeguards at 36% of their salary.
if that's what the slide says, yeah. It's at approximately 35, but yeah.
it's not just benefits, it's taxes, payroll taxes, and benefits.
That's benefits. You add all of that. In other words, what they're not getting in their paycheck, it's not their payroll taxes they're paying. Okay, we pay a portion of that.
Right, so that's
Okay,
payrolls
so
and benefits.
Are you saying it's 36.7%?
Yes, that's what it says. I don't
Yes.
see that slide in front of me, but yes.
But we don't know how that's broken down.
Well, we do know how that's broken down, it's just not in this deck of slides, so if you want to get this information tomorrow, I'll be more than happy to share that with you.
Well, I was
That's
hoping
also, let me just take a step back and tell you those percentages are the same percentages that we use for the reimbursement on all the federal grants. So when I send that schedule for the grants for all the millions of dollars that we receive in reimbursements for the capital projects, federal government reviews and audits these numbers.
Okay.
And whatever that cost comes out to be per employee, it's not a variable cost. It's a contractual obligation we have, so it's
No,
really...
it's not. It's a statutory obligation, John.
It's variable, it depends on the person, so it's variable in terms of their length of service and earnings.
No, what I mean, it's not like you can't give them the benefit.
So
it's part of their contract.
it's non-discretionary.
So it's right. So it's tied to, the only variable is the number of lifeguards is the only variable that's
Yeah.
going to impact cost.
It's the cost of doing business.
Right.
Right, and I'm just trying to figure out, because I find the number very high, 36.7%.
No, I don't. In all my years of being a financial professional, this is government, and actually it's probably low for...
Well, that's why I'd like to see what is actually put in for pensions for lifeguards. I just pulled...
Okay, but
Yeah.
You do not have to sign up for that either. That's
I know that.
optional. That's an
I know
optional
that.
thing.
I know, and I know a lot don't, especially when you're in tier whatever it is now, 35 or something, you know. A lot of the kids say.
There is a clause in the contract of the lifeguards, and I think it's totally ridiculous that they're guaranteed 48 hours. In other words, I can't send people home if it's raining. I have to keep them there, unless you send them home and pay them.
And that's an ongoing negotiation, Rich, right?
This has been in the contract since like 1978 or something.
Can you
And
talk-
it's totally, I mean, I feel bad for the lifeguards that I'm talking like this, but that's the way it is, because I gotta be able to meet the budget too. And it does hurt us. You know, have to keep, you could save probably, I would say about $50,000 you could save about $50,000 if you had, if you had this clause changed, but it's difficult.
The clause has to be negotiated. So when we look at this, and we're talking about the pensions, you're talking about cutting expenses. The expense of the pension is not something, because everybody doesn't take it, Enid will be gladly to show you what goes into that 35 or 37%. But does that answer your question? What other question do you have of the lifeguards as far as reducing expenses?
No, my biggest, well, you know, what Paul's mentioning, Paul, if you went down to the 40 hours, you say you could save money, but if you went down to the 40 hours, could you staff the beach? I mean, I don't know how much that extra hour works towards staffing the beach.
In other words, it's guaranteed 48. If they even knocked it down to 40, you could send kids home and save the money. Save some money doing it, you know?
But we'd have to balance whether or not they get paid more somewhere else.
If they go somewhere else, I don't know, you know?
That's a negotiation, yeah.
But
Yeah, I mean, it's under negotiations right now. We're negotiating a lifeguard contract.
But how do you know,
Okay.
I don't want to open up a Pandora's box, but how do you pay them, how do you not pay them overtime?
I have no idea with that. All I know is,
In terms of overtime, it's a seasonal business, so
It
it's
doesn't
kind of...
matter seasonal, they work for the state, they work for,
If
you know,
we
if you
keep-
work, if you work for a park, a recreational park, no, you can have them work 48. They're working for a city, they're not working for a seasonal business. I don't see how.
if
you
we
can do
keep
it.
them over 10 hours a day, we have to pay them overtime.
Uh-huh.
All right, that's what's in the contract.
Yeah.
So that's, you know, it's
So
basically
I
what you
mean-
got. You know, my hands are tied with that whole thing there, and you know, when it's pouring rain and you got a full staff out at the beach, and you could be sending half of them home, you know, if you get the weather forecast, which I am Mr. Weatherman, I have to be,
Let
as
me
you
ask you
know.
a question. Could they voluntarily go home
Yes, they could.
and not get paid?
Yes, they wouldn't get paid then, but nobody volunteers.
Could-
You get money for nothing, you're gonna stay there.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna leave this to the experts that are negotiating the contract, right? So,
Right.
basically, we're talking about a $2 million base every summer to run the beach for the lifeguards. If there's opportunities for, savings, it's something that, the staff can get back to us on, correct?
That's right.
Yes.
Thanks.
Well, what I want to say is that any opportunity for savings, the staff will get back to you on it. The staff has done an excellent job the last 2 years in saving money and getting the city back going in the right direction, which will be evident in the audit. So now we're sitting here telling the staff, who's done an excellent job, maybe you should look at not your experience of running a beach, not your experience of beach this or whatever it is that you do. Now you need to look at, and it's not coming across, and I'm sorry if I'm sounding difficult, it's not coming across is an idea of let us work together. It's coming across as let me tell you how to do your job.
I don't know why you're saying that, Donna, because I'm asking questions.
Okay,
That's
go
all
ahead.
I'm doing. I'm asking questions. We have sat here for an hour and a half talking about how we can charge the residents more money, and nobody said anything about saving money. I asked questions, and I think I have a right to ask the questions, Donna.
One way to actually ask them how can you save money, is each person get up, can you save money on reduction of staff?
Paul gave us great ideas.
Yeah, but it's negotiable.
I don't think it is.
It is
But
negotiable.
I'm not
It's in
gonna
the
say that.
contract. You can't, is it in the contract, Rich? It's in the contract.
But
So
if
that
it's-
is not something that we can sit here tonight and say,
No.
we're going to cut costs
We're
unless
not-
we negotiate it
We
in the
ask
contract.
ideas, Donna.
John,
ideas.
do you have
That's
any,
all.
do you have any comments on this line of questioning? Like, where, you know, to help us bring this with all your experience on the council for the past 4 years to bring us back to where we're focusing on. Liz, do you have any comments? Like, are we looking in the right places? Are we in the weeds? Are we overstepping? Like, John, what do you think?
They never did this.
Well, I mean, looking for cost savings is something we should always be doing. It's, quite frankly, as the council, that's not, our job is to task the staff with doing that, not to, well, not task the staff, but task Donna, and Donna tasks the staff with doing that. You know, to Roy's point, we do ask the questions.
Right.
That then, you know, again, Donna takes that information and goes back and works with the staff to figure out what they can and can't do. And we're certainly not going to solve that here tonight, right now, because, you know, we're raising some new issues here as well. You know, some new information points that everybody doesn't have at their fingertips at the moment. But it's not unreasonable to say, okay, you know, in some time frame, could Donna have the staff say, here are some possibilities, just like I came up with some suggestions for possible new revenue, what might be some suggestions for possible cost savings? And then we have to take all that, tie it together, and figure out what are we taking out of these lists of things and putting in the budget.
Okay.
Thank you.
Before we, I'm sorry, Karen, before we come to put a pin in this one, where are we on your number, Karen?
Grade 7?
I think,
Did we
let's see
get to
here.
400?
Did we get to 4?
I have about,
Well, we also have to
500,000.
verify this because we're kind of doing a back of the napkin right now.
well, yeah, that-
So we
Again,
have to
working
look at the number.
meeting.
No, I know that's what I'm saying. So
just
what I'm saying is we have to go back and just
Nothing
make sure
is-
these guesses are good guesses.
Right.
about 500,000, so what does that mean? We still have about a 600,000 shortfall. In general terms, as an estimate, nothing set in stone.
So what we'll have to do is the staff and I will do what we always do, is we'll go back and we'll take a look to see where for this fiscal year, if there is somewhere for the 600,000. It's not going to be solved here by going line by line. It's something that the staff and I will do and that we always have done. I encourage that any council member that has a question about a particular item, that they ask us about the item so that we can get through the information timely. That if you have a question about the pension, we'll answer that question about the pension, but let us know what the question is beforehand. If you have a question about whether John's numbers are correct, we will answer those questions beforehand. What is important that we keep in mind is that the budget is due next week.
Yep.
And so we have to know what numbers to put in the budget. Ina and I will be working on this budget, and so we need to know, what do you want us to put forth
Right.
to you on Tuesday, so that next week we can give you the budget.
Okay.
I think that would go.
What'd you say, Liz?
I'm looking at John's out of the box with the, we didn't raise the prices on,
You talking about his 4.8?
that, and also, I don't think that, Joe, did we raise the price on senior passes last year? It went up from 15 to 20? It should, yeah. I think that's something we could still maybe take a peek at. Not just seniors, but the Access Pass, the Veterans Pass. They're very significant, but it's it is a good chunk of change that would assess the rest of the budget.
The population of the seniors goes up every year.
Right.
People are living longer.
And just to emphasize, again, because people are looking at home, and Karen has also addressed this, that if we do have families that are on financial hardship, that they are able to come to you, correct?
What did you say? Families that are
So we don't want anyone that, a resident not to be able to go that can't go to the beach because they can't afford it.
The families that have the financial hardship, we get the information from the school district. And
Thank
they
you.
tell us whether they're on
Right.
free lunch or whatever
Right.
that is.
And then, so
Yes.
they can come to you. That's
Yes.
all. I just want to make sure that.
They go to Joe and let Joe know
Very
that
good. Thank you.
those numbers are not in there because we haven't gotten the free
Right.
lunch listing. So
I just want to make sure that
You're-
you're good?
you're good with the 4 point?
Well, again, I don't know if some of the other council members may not have seen this because
No, I couldn't.
You're right,
haven't-
I didn't send it out till, whatever it was, 3 o'clock or something, so.
I'll need to look at it.
Right, I mean,
Yeah.
people might need a day to digest it. But like I said, most of it is based on Ina's recommendation.
Right.
So it doesn't, very little deviation from what Ina was recommending.
Okay. And I mean, the expenses are virtually flat for the third summer in a row, right? So basically,
Except for when we have raises,
right?
contractual raises.
But again, I think we need, again, this is just a personal opinion, that option of charging a lower fee to get on the beach at, say, 4 o'clock. I think that's got the potential to be a revenue generator because there's
I
all these
agree.
people that wait for 6 o'clock.
Yeah,
Is that something, I'm sorry. Is that
Paul,
some-
you and I have talked about this for a while. I don't know what,
yeah, we'd have to,
Joe's still here, what
we'd
Joe
have to look
thinks.
at staffing,
yeah. Well, that's what I'm
staffing
saying.
to
I
go
don't
along
have the
with
data
it.
to know, but,
But working that
that's
out.
something Paul and Joe could talk about and.
I definitely agree with that.
So what the staff and I will look at is programs on the beach early morning to come up with a fee.
Right.
To charge people for a permit to do their
And they have to
programs
have
on the
insurance.
beach. What'd you say?
They have to have insurance.
They have to have insurance?
Yes.
Yes. The garage, we
Insurance.
talked about opening up the garage anyway this year, making sure, we're just trying to figure out the actual, how you pay, whether we just let them pay what they pay right now in the garage, using the machines. If we do, like, buy so many passes and you park for free, that means we have to put a person there.
That is true.
We would have to put person there. And then we will also look
And we'd have
at
to-
lowering the fee.
And we'd have to find a way to let people know about it, too.
Yeah, lower the fee at 4 o'clock. We'll take a look at all of those
Yeah.
for potentials, and then we will also take a look at if there's any cost-cutting measures for us.
And Rich, I'm sorry, right now, when somebody buys a pass to use the garage, that pass is only weekdays, or?
No.
So it's,
By license plate for,
No, but so again, remember, everything's changed since COVID. So when I was parking in there, it's $250 for the year, and that gets you just 24/7 access to, well, let me rephrase that. It allows you to park there. Whether there's a spot there or not depends on when you go in. But on weekends, that garage is barely used. Most people work Monday to Friday that take the Long Island Railroad. While there are some people that may work on weekends, generally speaking, it's a Monday to Friday operation there, and the garage is basically empty on weekends.
It's basically empty now.
It's been
Yeah.
empty
Yeah.
since COVID, since the company started shutting down.
people
It's
are
not-
starting to go back to work, though.
They are starting. But like I said, it's
Empty
predominantly a
on the
Monday to Friday thing.
And if we have somebody there, they will know before they start selling the tickets how many spaces we have. And if there's nobody there, you can't put any money if you don't have a space into the machines. So the key is that we let people know that that parking lot is available. So that may bring more people from out of town because they don't have to drive around. And then we have a trolley that goes from the parking lot to the beach.
And we can sell that electronically too.
It is sold electronically. Yeah, there are kiosks in there that you can put money in right now.
No, I meant with the electronic passes.
What the,
You could order on your phone.
what, the
What?
park?
You can,
No, people will be able to buy their passes online.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The
So they will
online,
have an option, you could figure in the option of that, the $50 parking, whatever.
yeah, we'll have to talk to the vendor on how to,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Program.
that's an idea that we can put across to them that will be bringing in more money.
And we have to figure out what the right price is.
Yeah,
So-
for a package of 4.
Whatever it is, right.
For a
2,
day.
4, whatever
For a
it may
day.
be.
So I have, doubling the Long Island Railroad revenue. We have electronic beach pass efficiencies this year. We have a weather plug of a good guy of about 100 grand.
Okay.
Crystal ball weather optimism. Then we have Mary Poppins one. We have Bendo creative pricing ideas, packages. And then we're going to figure out the any potential increases. We can put a ballpark number on that of 100, 200, 300, or higher after each one of us review the schedule and then provide me with feedback.
Do we have a public hearing on this?
No.
Mm-hmm.
No. What I'd like is that if you have, what'd you say?
I told her they can comment when the
Right.
resolution's in front of the council.
You can, I would say, look at his schedule where you have the 4.8.
Okay.
Because that will cover a lot of the stuff that you just looked at. Then we'll look at any cost-cutting measures. I mean, there won't be $1 million worth of cost-cutting measures, I can tell you that now. And we will look also, we have 2 concerns. The one concern is through June 30th, and then we have the next budget year. So we're going to be looking at the concerns based on the particular time frame on how we can do it. Also, for this current year, we will be looking at seeing if there is additional savings elsewhere within the budget that will cover whatever shortfall we have in beach.
I can tell you I am ready to go to the beach every day this summer, so I'm thinking it's going to be a hot season. I'm going to see Paul out there on the beach, so I think we have to really be careful and deliberate this personally and really think about, we have to prepare for a great summer, hopefully.
So will you all be able to get back to us by Friday?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, anybody have any final thoughts from the council? Roy?
I think we should also have a database of who buys the passes, and so that if Rich needs something, it's ridiculous to have to look it up by hand.
We do have a database, it's just not automated.
Well,
It's a stack of papers.
yeah, a stack of papers, okay.
the
I don't call
database.
that a database, okay? Not for the last 50 years or so.
Hey,
20 years.
Rome wasn't built in a day, Roy.
I will
It
agree
doesn't
with,
cost that much money.
I will agree with you.
Yeah.
What we can do with that is that FRB gave us money for the electronic beach passes. Depending on what a cost is, we can ask permission to get a database with that money, since we already have the electronic beach passes, but we have to get permission from them. But I agree with you that we need to come into current, the current century, and as far as all of our data that we try to get.
Yeah, to your point, we don't only need to know who's buying them, we need to know patterns.
Right.
When they're buying them, times a day, being able to tie it to weather.
You're probably talking less than 10 fields.
This comes down to Long Beach changing, transformational change.
Yeah.
We all love our beach passes. We want the physical beach pass. My husband wants the beach pass.
What kind of
I want to
ties
go
in-
electronic, okay? I want everything in there so we can start to analyze this information in a sophisticated manner. So we're going to have to sort of move a little bit forward.
And I think something that ties into that is enforcement, the potential of, our lost revenue through what is happening in the enforcement measures. Understandably, these kids at each of the, they're not going to want to deal with, nor would I want my young person to deal with like an angry anybody, resident or otherwise, or, saying anything, questioning, going in or clicking the ticket. But a lot of times there's lost revenue through the enforcement measures that could be ramped up.
So anybody else? Final thoughts? I want to thank everybody for attending, the staff, and for everyone watching this evening. I hope it was informative and the story isn't over yet. And please know that we hear your concerns.